Ready to stop trading time for money and build a business that can scale? Then you're in good company. This is the Productize Podcast, where I chat with entrepreneurs who've transformed their businesses using the productized service model. I'm your host, Brian Castle. Want to learn my best strategies for productizing your business? Then get my free crash course by going to productizecourse.com. Now let's get into the show.
So 2016 is turning out to be a pretty interesting year for Justin Jackson. He's leaving his semi-full-time consulting work to focus on his own products, which there are many products that Justin is involved in, as many of you know. And so that puts him in a unique situation with several questions, such as how to sustain this highly diversified business, how to leverage his existing audience to sell a productized consulting offer, why a one-time purchase model might even be better than a recurring revenue model when it comes to productized consulting in Justin's particular situation. So we kind of covered all of that in this conversation with Justin. It was really interesting to kind of talk through what he's thinking right now as he kind of in real time as he's going through this time of transition in his business. And he's a pretty well-known guy with a pretty large audience, so it makes it even more interesting that he's doing so much of this out in public, which I really respect a lot. So this is a little bit of a different type of conversation than the rest of the episodes that you've heard here on the Productize Podcast, but I think it's really insightful, especially since Justin Jackson is kind of considering a productized service offer. He's done a little bit of productized service consulting in the past, so it's interesting to hear him kind of kick around these ideas, and I give some thoughts on them as well. So we'll get right into that in just a moment. Now, today's quick tip when it comes to productized services is to think beyond just you. Now, here's what I mean by that. When you're working on any task, no matter what it is, whether you're writing an email or you're telling a teammate how to do something, or you're working on a website, or whatever it is, you're writing some copy, you want to think about how is this going to scale beyond just you? And so, one example is this very Productized Podcast. Now, the concern with launching a brand new podcast is, that's going to require all this time from me on an ongoing basis. I don't know if I can actually commit to, week in, week out, all year long, publishing and recording and editing all these different podcast episodes. So what I did was I actually bunched them all together and I recorded all of these episodes in January and February of 2016. And then I scheduled them out to publish throughout the year of 2016. And that's kind of the first season of this Productized Podcast. And so my goal there was to let this work, this task that I'm working on, kind of live on beyond, after I stop working on it. So you kind of have to plan for you getting burned out on doing a particular task week in, week out. And so that can mean, putting it into a standard operating procedure, delegating it to a teammate, building or crafting the thing in such a way that it's kind of templateized and easy to reuse and easy to build into your business as an asset rather than just a one-time benefit. These are things that you want to think about, and that's today's quick tip, to think beyond just you doing the work. All right, I'm here talking with my friend Justin Jackson. Justin, welcome to the show here.
Hey, Brian, how's it going, man?
Doing good. So, I'm sure that most of the audience here probably knows your stuff, has been following your stuff online. I want to try to call out, what your website is or your podcast is, but I mean, it seems like it's changing every month. So, just for those who are just meeting you here for the first time, where can people kind of follow you online these days?
I think the best place is justinjackson.ca, or on Twitter. I'm the letter M, the letter I, and Justin.
Very cool. So, Justin, you've been kind of like building up a name for yourself and a sizable audience these past few years. I don't know how else to describe it other than product people as well as makers and bootstrappers and entrepreneurs. You're really embedded in this community, and you've been a big part of growing this community yourself through your podcasting and other communities and various products that you've launched quite successfully. You've launched a book called or a course called Marketing for Developers, among several others. But the reason I invited you on here for the Productize Podcast, people may be wondering, how does how does this story fit into the theme of what we talk about here, talking about productized services, productized consulting, is I received an email from you, your email newsletter, about a week ago or so, talking about your goals for 2016. Because here we are, January 2016, we're looking ahead into this new year. And I heard you mention a few things. Number one, you're moving away from the type of consulting that you've done in the past. Mm-hmm. And you're going kind of full-time on building out your own products and some service-related products going forward. And then you had like a quick mention of getting into a productized service, making that a part of your mix in 2016. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of hear your thoughts on that from the outset, like as it's still coming together. And kind of get a behind the scenes look kind of in real time here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about this too because I have still not figured everything out, and so I'm sure as I talk things out today, I'm even going to kind of discover some stuff for myself. But yeah, one thing I did in the past, so this past year, I was basically consulting full time with 2 big clients, and that provided, 80% of my income or something like that. And both of those contracts ended November 15th. And so I knew, I had lots of warning. I knew that those contracts, the contracts were going to be ending. And I had this choice of I could go out and hustle and find some new clients. And when you think about that, that could take all sorts of forms, right? I could go find 1 or 2 more big clients and, sign up for another big project that would take 1 or 2 years. Or I could go find, some smaller projects to work on and maybe have 4, 5, 6 consulting projects in a year. Or I could focus more of my energy on making my own stuff, earning an income from that. And in that mix, I thought, what if I did 50% of my revenue this year from products, 25% from, I said 50% of my income from like info products, like books and workshops and things like that, 25% from software products. So I have a little web application I've been working on. I have, WordPress plugins and other things I've tried. And then 25% from productized services. And the reason I thought about that is, to me, a productized service is something it's a lot easier for me to turn on. And part of the reason I've tested this in the past and it's been true. I guess it's not always a guarantee, but I had this thought of, I've been building this audience for years, and I get requests all the time from folks that say, can you help me with this, or do you do consulting? And often those projects are too small, especially if I'm on like a bigger project. They're not, quite worth my time. But if I could create something that is kind of repeatable and leverages some systems and some technology and some other things, but also involves, consulting, that might be a good fit for this year as I transition out of consulting full time.
Yeah, I really like it. And what's interesting here is that you're looking at productized services or productized consulting offer as, I'm sure it will be enjoyable. And we'll talk in a minute about what exactly you're looking to productize. But in the bigger picture, it seems like you're looking at that as like a 25% of your income. It's a way to help sustain the other things that you do, working on new products, maintaining a huge number of products that you've been, these projects and things that you've been working on.
Yeah.
So, I think that goes to show the different roles of what a productized service can be. Like in my experience, I've built it into like like my main business, but I know plenty of people who do it as kind of like a side project or a small part of their income to help sustain the other things. And it's not just from a monetary standpoint, but it's such a focused service, doing, one small thing and it requires just a bit of your time versus traditional consulting, which what you've been doing with marketing consulting, you can be in a contract that can be a year or longer. I know plenty of people who they do consulting to pay the bills, but what ends up happening is it eats up all of their hours, and then they can't do anything else.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I'm trying to avoid, and we'll see if it ends up happening, right? I'm at the end of the day, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to support my family, and so we have pretty high costs compared to some folks. There's 6 of us, and they're basically I'm providing most of the income, so I have to kind of think about that all the time. And so as I was planning out this year, I said, I'm going to probably take December, January, and maybe February to really kind of give some of these projects I've been wanting to do a good go. But come February, if I need some extra income, the first thing I'm going to go to is some form of consulting, and ideally it would be Productized Consulting, because the nice thing about it is that the terms are a lot not what I mean. The length of the contract is a lot shorter. There's a lot less. A lot of especially marketing projects are about 90 days at least, because you need a couple months. You need to go through a couple months to go through 3 cycles.
Yeah.
And so this way, if I can do something smaller that has a smaller time frame, I'm hoping I can just turn that on when I need to.
And so like what kind of things have you been kicking around? Because I know that you mentioned something about doing some productized coaching services with entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. There are all sorts of like marketing related productized services you can do. So what are you looking at? So
in the past I've done so one was like I'll go in and run A/B tests for you and then write a report. For a long time I still have these running. I had back when I was doing web development, I kind of productized building websites and hosting them for people. And so normally you would go in and you give people you find out what they want, and then you write out a proposal and get a deposit and all that stuff. And I basically try to shorten that down, and then charged between $50 to $200 a month for basically hosting the website, updating, like keeping the WordPress plugins and all that updated and all that. And then if they needed help, they could call me once a month. And I've had those running forever. And
those are still running today?
Yeah, they're still running today.
Oh, nice.
They just keep running. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of those were kind of high at the beginning. There's, it might have been, per person, it was maybe 5 to 10 hours to onboard them. But, some of those have been running for 5 years now. And it's just, $200 a month that just comes in. And if they need me, they can call me, but they don't call that much. Yep. And so the things like that are can be nice. But also, I think just like having I noticed that Nick, what's Nick's last name?
Nick DeSabato.
DeSabato, yeah. Yep. He's just started advertising these $400 coaching calls, and they kind of lead into some of the other services he's providing. And so I've thought about that too. Like there's a lot of there's kind of a lot of branding you can do around even a coaching call. Yeah. Like I own landingpageteardown.com, I think. And so that was another thing I'd done in the past is say, contacted some people, say, hey, I've got this kind of system for doing landing page teardowns. Here's what it costs. And then kind of go through it with them. And it's just a set price, similar to what, how come I can't think of Jared's, similar to what Jared did.
Oh, Jared, yeah, I was thinking of Jared Drysdale as well.
Yeah, with landing page in a day.
Yeah.
And so the those are things I haven't like really turned on, but I've experimented with them. I've done little projects for people along the way. I know there's demand, and I know if I hope if I need to, I can just kind of turn it on and, offer something like that.
That's an interesting question, because it's the question of, okay, should I look for something that has recurring revenue potential, like web hosting and like website maintenance, kind of like a WP curve style service, or something like a landing page teardown or a coaching session, which is just a one-time purchase. It requires a one-time commitment of your time. I mean, I think a lot of times there's too much emphasis on recurring revenue, and people kind of overlook some of the benefits of a one-time purchase productized service.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in your situation, like if considering your goals and your priorities, which are to work on multiple projects and develop out these other bigger initiatives that you're doing with building communities and your podcast and whatever. Like a big goal of yours is to be able to turn it on and turn it off, right? So you
right.
can just devote 1 month to landing page teardowns and then kind of get back to your other stuff.
Yeah, that was my thought. And so we'll see if it works. To me, like, the ability to do the short-term stuff sometimes is better than focusing on the recurring stuff. So even that example of the website hosting, where it's kind of like WP curve kind of service, that to make a significant amount of money, to really make a dent in that, you would have to do biz dev all the time. Like, you're always basically trying to get new people.
Yep.
And that is a lot of work.
And you're also working on churn.
You're working on churn and everything else. The other thing is that, I've thought multiple times, even, so most of the time none of this stuff bothers me, but if one of those websites gets malware on it, that like ruins my entire life, right? It ruins the profitability of that customer. It ruins, my day or my week, depending on how bad it is. And there's these ongoing concerns that you have with something that's recurring. And
those kind of things can come up whenever, like when you're in the middle of something else.
That's right. So the advantage is that that it's going to come in every month minus churn, but the disadvantage is that you're kind of always on call, and it does feel like, for as many projects as I have, people always ask me if I get tired, like, don't you feel like kind of weighted down by all these different projects you're working on? And the only ones I feel really weighted down by are the monthly recurring things, because it feels like I've just made this commitment, and it's so hard to break it, because that this money's coming in.
Right.
But to walk away from it is like, like I could, and and so I've thought, the recurring productized consulting I've done so far, every once in a while I'm like, man, maybe for what I'd like to achieve, I should just walk away from that stuff and just focus on these one-time things.
I mean, I think that for each person there are different priorities and different goals, and everything has trade-offs. And I mean, but at the same time, you're right. It's recurring revenue is a very difficult thing to even obtain in the first place, let alone walk away from if you already have it. So it's tricky. But I mean, you look at someone like Dan Norris, who built WP Curve. Obviously he committed to that idea. He committed to building it into a business with a team, and kind of focused on that for a while. I mean, I know he does other things too, but he got into that. And like for myself doing audience ops, like it is a recurring revenue business, but I'm kind of committed to it as my main focus. Whereas I look at what you're doing, and I've seen other similar productized services, like what Jared has done with landingpageinAday.com. Another case study in the Productize course is from Joanna Wiebe, and we recorded this like about a year ago. And what she did for a while, I think she has turned it off. It's one of those turn on, turn off things again.
Yeah.
She, what did she call them? They were like kind of similar to landing page teardowns, but it was more focused on copywriting.
Yeah.
Where you pay, I think it was like $9.99, and she will then record a 30-minute screencast of her tearing down your website and kind of making copy recommendations.
Yeah.
And it's not even like a coaching call. I think it was just her recording it and then sending you the recording. So she can just do a couple of the, and again, she has a built-in audience, very popular blog and email list, and having that in place, it's the kind of thing that you can kind of, build a waiting list for, and just kind of, make an announcement. There are a few spots available this month, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my hope. And I haven't tested this in a while. The last time I tested something like this is when I did, I was writing, now I got to think about this. I was building a course called Build Your Audience. And before I did it, before I invested the time in like building the course, I thought, I should do a webinar workshop. And that was a case of like me emailing out the list saying, here's when I'm going to do this, and there's this many spots, and you can sign up here. And I'm basically hoping that based on my reputation, what people heard me write about and podcast about, or show as examples in things that I've, products I've produced, I'm hoping that they, because of those things, they, trust me enough to sign up for something like that. So that's what I'm hoping happens this year. And you never really know until you try it. But that's the idea, is that I can leverage some of the things I've done in the past, especially with marketing for developers, and offer some things like landing page teardown in a day. It might just be, a coaching call. It might be a system for going through their, like, a specific marketing thing. So I thought, I could go through all of their churn analytics, like go look through everyone's like whatever the stats they have for churn, and then basically try to figure out why people are churning. And when I've done that in the past for some of my bigger clients, I've found things like you can if they have Mixpanel or Kissmetrics, you can run all that stuff through, get all the data and kind of systemize a way of getting information from those folks. So like first email would be, hey, I saw that you canceled. Would just like to know, what's going on. Why did you cancel? And having some options there. And sometimes trends emerge, like, a lot of our customers are startups, and a lot of startups fail. And we just had a lot of startups fail this month. It had nothing to do with product market fit or, the product wasn't good enough. It was just our target customer is going out of business.
Right. And then the issue could be like, maybe that's the wrong target customer.
Exactly. So the idea of like being able to offer service like that and in a systemized way, and then have a report come out at the end where you can see, this is what I've been able to kind of bring out of your stats on churn.
Very cool. So I also want to hear about some of your high level reasoning for, this year you decided to step away from these long-term consulting engagements to do more of your own stuff. And I got to think a big part of that is to do more of the work that really fires you up and gets your juices going. Working on products, working on your own things. And as you're looking at these productized service ideas, I got to think that a big part of that is like, what are the things that you're actually going to enjoy delivering, right? So if doing like a coaching call or even like a landing page teardown, these are things that you're probably talking to other entrepreneurs and doing all the time, and just that's what you do anyway, right?
Yeah, and actually that's a good point, because I think, again, part of me is hesitant to be too confident right now, because I realize that, I have these ideas for things, but I haven't really tested them out yet. But one reason I feel confident that I think it'll work is that I've been doing these things either, for fun, just as a part of for fun, or like maybe like a small amount of money over the, the past years. So if someone said, hey, can you like on a clarity call would be a good example. Can you go to my website and just kind of give me, 5 good points about something I should change? So I've had practice in some of these things, and I always were like, if I did a clarity call and we did a teardown of their website, I was always fired up at the end. I was like, man, I love these like little projects where I can go in, they can try something, and then they can, come back to me the next week and say, this is what I tried. It either worked or it didn't. Do you have any other ideas or whatever?
Yeah.
And so,
and it's like there's value there both for your customers of that service and for yourself. It's, you get to talk about marketing and
exactly.
give other entrepreneurs feedback.
Yeah, exactly. And the more, in my case, the more kind of unique cases I see, like the more I can see what's going on underneath the wrapping paper, the better it makes me at, for example, understanding marketing and product marketing.
Yeah.
So the more cases I see, the more I'm like, oh, wait a second, I see some trends here. This is what everybody is kind of dealing with. Like one example is, I noticed after like working with a lot of people, and this might not come as a surprise to anyone who's done this before, but in terms of product revenue across all the customers I've seen in my own stuff and in my friends' stuff, the top countries in terms of revenue breakdown is almost 40 to 50% USA, 10-15% Canada, and then a mix of like Australia, UK, and Germany, almost exclusively, right? Like those are the revenue breakdowns by country. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting. And that information could be used all sorts of ways, especially in terms of like targeting ads. So most people, when they do a Facebook ad campaign, they just like, you just go through it and they just
turn it on for the world.
Turn it on for the world. And if you don't have that information, especially if you're brand new and you still haven't collected enough sales data, you could be spending all this money that you don't need to, when really most products, the bulk of your income is going to come from the USA and Canada, followed by the UK, and then Germany and Australia are somewhere in there too.
Yeah.
So just knowing that, and even knowing like the percentages, can be helpful for people. So the more I kind of expose myself to other people, and I can kind of peek underneath the hood and say, oh, okay, I see what's going on here, I can then give everyone better information because I've got more data points.
Exactly. And kind of diagnosing the same problem again and again, comes up with the same, you come up with the same solution, which makes it a much more systematized thing, easier to streamline, even easier to depends on what the service really is, but easier to hire an assistant to help you, do some of the nuts and bolts of it. You can go kind of down those routes. The other thing I wanted to touch on here was attaching a productized service to an existing info product, like a book or a course. It sounds like that's something that you've done, like, selling the book or the course with an optional upgrade for a coaching session. That's exactly what I've been doing with the Productized course. You can they're basically 2 packages as of this recording, the whole course or the whole course plus an hour coaching session with me. Mm-hmm. And I do a couple of those a month. And again, it's the same idea there, where it's like, I enjoy talking to entrepreneurs and consultants who are getting into productized services. Like, that's something that I enjoy anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm perfectly fine with taking a couple hours a month out to do that, and even like to take me away from my work on audience ops.
Yeah. Actually, this is a good thing to talk about, because I think this is a mistake I made with marketing for developers. So I had 3 tiers with marketing for developers. I had $39 for the buck. I'm not going to be able to remember these. $85 for the mid tier, and then I think $199 for the big tier, with had all the video tutorials and everything else. So fairly basic breakdown for something like that. And then right before Christmas, I thought, you know what? I need to. There's a lot of companies that want to spend year-end money, for the 2015 budget. So I'm going to put together a package called Marketing for Startups. And it's going to have the Marketing for Developers book and all those videos, plus a new book I'm going to be launching in 2016 called Marketing for Makers. So that's for non-technical people. And I thought this will be perfect. I'll put it all together with a license for, for different team sizes, and I'm going to sell it like this. And so I emailed it out and stuff, and I sold one, which was not bad, but actually it was not very good, if we're honest, right? And when I was asking some folks about it, and what I think I was missing there was the productized service element of it. So you get the product, but then you get a 1-hour workshop with Justin and your team, or you get a 1-hour coaching call, or you get a custom email sequence for your whole team that's built by Justin. So there's all these other things I could have added to that I didn't, and I think it would have done a lot better if I had that kind of element in there where they could get some sort of like consulting, or even some sort of like personalized sequence that was just for them.
Yeah. I mean, so many people look at the idea of launching an info product, like launching their very first ebook or something, and it's, because it's such a passive income, high profit margin kind of product, that the idea to add any sort of manual service to this, or any sort of like time consuming element, is, you're trying to avoid that, right? When you're getting into doing an info product. But at the same time, if you've identified a topic that really matters to customers, and it's a topic that you are so passionate about that you can write a whole book about it, and you know so much about it, you must live and breathe this stuff, whatever the topic is.
Yeah.
Why not add an option for a 1-hour consulting session at a much higher price point and make it worth both your time and your customers? I mean, it's kind of a win-win, and it also really helps make the entire thing sustainable. If you're someone, obviously you're not in this case, but if you're someone who hasn't grown a large audience yet, but you do want to start with a $39 ebook, it's going to be very difficult to rack up enough sales revenue to make that a sustainable investment of your time. And to add a couple $100 option to get an hour with you to talk about that very stuff.
The other thing, I think the other mistake, this is so cathartic, by the way, talking to you about this. The mistake I made was I was thinking exactly that, like, I'm going to launch this thing and I don't want any other kind of manual labor on top of that. But for people like me, I'm missing out on one of my huge strengths, which is I love talking to people and I'm good with people. And so the idea of me going and having a coaching call with someone and them getting really fired up at the end and having all this benefit from just having someone like who shows some enthusiasm for their business and all those things that I think I'm naturally good at, I was kind of missing out on something that played to my strengths. And that's something I've been thinking about. Like I need to. Sometimes there's this little person in your head that goes, try to go this passive income route and not put too much more work on yourself. But I put all that work into promoting that marketing for startups package. And I think it would have done so much better if I had that element in there that really played to my strengths. Yeah,
and I feel like this one other element of productized services often gets lost on most people, because the idea is that you're moving away from most people want to move away from the hourly consulting kind of thing. And usually the reason for that is you're dealing with clients who aren't valuing the work that even though they hired you to do some job, they don't really value it, or they don't quite get it, or you're constantly pushing back and they're not taking your professional recommendations, and that just makes the whole process a drain on the consultant. And I've been through that for years, doing web design work, and so many people have. But when it comes to any sort of productized offer, whether it's an attached coaching session with an ebook or a productized consulting package of some kind. It all starts with you identifying a target customer and identifying a problem that they have, and then they kind of find you attract that target customer. So they're coming to you with this problem, and you have the freedom to craft your most ideal solution. It's almost like if I had a client and they just said, I've got an unlimited budget, just tell me what I need to do. And you have free reign to just give them exactly what they need and what you know will solve their problem. And maybe even that's just talking to them for an hour and telling them, giving them guidance. That's a much more enjoyable working engagement.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And it's like a win-win for both parties. So I think it's important that we don't overlook that benefit of it. It just for the sake of avoiding manual, done for you, time-consuming work at all costs.
Yeah, totally. And so for me, Brian, what would you say if I'm looking to put some of this in practice and maybe start with something small? What do you usually recommend? Like, is there kind of a go-to strategy that you say, this is a great place for, I have, obviously there's like this interest, this domain of interest that I'd like to target and this particular audience. What's a good place for someone like me to start?
Yeah, I think you come at this in a bit of a unique situation from most people, given the fact that you're already a pretty well-known guy in many circles in online entrepreneurship. You've built a sizable audience, so that in itself puts you in a unique situation here. And the other thing that's unique about you, like we said at the beginning, is that you have this goal of keeping a pretty diversified revenue or income stream in the upcoming year. You're working on many different projects, and that's an important part of what you do is to work on lots of different products and projects. Mm-hmm. So given all that, I think that in your case, it probably makes sense to veer toward the turn on, turn off kind of one-time productized service offering.
Yeah.
Coaching calls is something that you can easily turn on anytime, like you've done before, I think. Yeah. And so there would be that, and you also already have the info products that you could attach those things to.
Yeah.
The marketing for developers plus a consultation session. And so that's kind of like low-hanging fruit, I would say. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you can look at more focused marketing services like a Facebook ads review. Mm-hmm. Again, that could just be like a 1-hour review of someone who's just getting up and running with their Facebook ads. It's not something that would tie you down for months at a time. And given your priorities, you can devote all of a couple of months to your other projects, and then when it makes sense, kind of turn these things on. And I think the important part here is it's not about just turning them on when you need an infusion of cash, right? Mm-hmm. It's these things come with other benefits too. So someone who buys someone who buys a 1-hour coaching session with you is also in the same audience for your books, or also in the same audience for your software. Mm-hmm. And as things develop later in the year, next year, you might decide to build one of these revenue streams into a larger business or a larger portion of what you do, and you can kind of go to those customers who've purchased the one-time deal and maybe upsell them on some kind of recurring thing later if that becomes an issue for you down the road. But I think given where you're at right now, I would stick with I would say that you're unique in that building a recurring revenue productized consulting probably doesn't make sense given your priorities.
Yeah, at least right now. I might change my mind, but yeah, that I think I actually, and even just as we were talking, I was thinking, man, why haven't I at least put something together for marketing for developers? Because that is very low hanging fruit that I should just take advantage of. So I want to keep some of these ideas warm in people's minds. I think that's the other thing I keep thinking about is like, it's as much as I say I can just turn this on, I think people need a couple exposures before they kind of clue into the fact that, for example, for them to get in their mind that, oh, Justin does coaching calls. I think it'll take a few times for them to hear that before it really kind of clicks in and it's top of mind. So when their boss says, hey, we need some help on this, who can we call? They would think of me as opposed to someone else. And that's something I think I need to work on right now.
Yeah, that is the tough thing about being so diversified, is that people, it can get lost in terms of like what products are available from Justin Jackson right now. And I think even a lot of the people who know you and follow your stuff can kind of forget about what's actually available right now. You know, so, but I think in your case, you do have a large email list, and you can kind of back channel a lot of this stuff, right? So you can even segment your email list and send targeted emails to people who've shown interest before and say, hey, if you happen to know anyone or any companies who might have this sort of need, I'm starting to, I'm offering this service in fall of 2016, you know, email me if that makes sense. And, you know, I think in your case, again, it's pretty unique. You don't have to, like shout from the rooftops and with a big domain name and big brand name. It's really just people who are already in your audience can kind of point you to referrals. I mean, that's the other thing with a productized consulting offer, you know, which is typically higher priced than most other products.
Yeah.
You don't need that many leads and that many customers to make it a viable thing, right?
Totally. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that after this call. Actually, I'm gonna start just to have some kind of some warm leads to say, you know, I'm gonna be offering this, and maybe even give it a timeline. Like, I'm gonna be offering this in February. If you'd like to book some time right now, you can.
Yeah.
I think if I get nervous about one thing, it's like I know that it's anything, like even if you're launching a book, you always kind of like warm people up to it. And if all of a sudden you just show up one day and say, hey, I'm here, I've got, you know, here's what I'm offering, my worry is like people just won't be ready for it.
Yeah. Well, I you know, the other thing that I think you should probably do all year long is just have waiting lists for these things that you're offering.
Yeah.
And even if they only turn on for like 2 weeks out of the year, just have the waiting list running. And eventually you can even build out some marketing funnels where it's like a video or two that leads into an email sequence that leads into the waiting list.
Yeah.
To at least warm people up into the waiting list. And then when it does become available, you know, you've got a small segment of your list that has like raised their hand for that.
Yes. You know, again, I think because there's the stress for me is feeling like I know I want to have something available when I need it, but I also know I can't come to it cold. So I think I want to invest at least some time right now to at least put up a landing page and a waiting list to say, you know, this is going to become available, and when it's available, I'll let you know.
Yeah, that was the thing that I remembered from Jared's case study interview that we did for Productize. He built up a waiting list, and I think he had to like immediately close. He sold out his spots, I think, in the first week.
Yeah.
And then it was immediately, like, for the next 3 months, it was just all waiting list, you know.
Yeah.
And then I think for the rest of that year, he just went right back to that list, and I mean, and you know, and then he kind of upsold a lot of those landing page in a day clients into larger client projects, and so that was interesting how he kind of leveraged that. But I would just kind of keep that. So again, like for these on-off products, at least have some kind of ongoing marketing channel for them, even if they're not available.
Yeah, I've literally got a to-do list for after this call that I'm gonna be implementing, and I think that's number one on my list.
Very cool. Well, I think we got a lot packed into this call. I think it'll be exciting. I mean, it's always exciting following your stuff. I've been a fan of your podcast for forever, and 2016 is going to be really exciting for you. So I mean, what should people kind of tune in to right now?
Well, if they are in startups or software, product marketing, they should go to justinjackson.ca. And then my other kind of side project that's I would say is divergent from that is this new podcast called MegaMaker. It's megamaker.co, and specifically the MegaMaker Challenge, megamaker.co/challenge. And if they are just people that want to make more things this year, they want to stop consuming so much, and they have a bunch of side project ideas that they've never done, that's MegaMaker. It's providing motivation and encouragement for people to stop, just reading blog posts and watching Netflix and actually make some stuff this year. So I'm going to be trying to do both at the same time. My professional career is going to be in, marketing for developers and marketing for startups. And then this kind of fun project is going to be MegaMaker. And people that know me know I'm like into heavy metal. And
I was just going to say, that sounds like a metal band in the making.
Yeah, it's basically an excuse for me to have a metal band without playing any music.
Love it.
So they can check that stuff out. It's already been really fun. That's one of the things I've been dedicating time to this month.
Awesome. Well, Justin, great to catch up with you, and we'll talk soon.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in today. Get all the show notes for this entire season at productizepodcast.com. And to get my free Productize crash course, where I share my best strategies for launching and sustaining your Productize service business, head over to productizecourse.com. All right, time to get back to working on the business.